All right, 6:30, 6:31. We'll go ahead and call the public input session to order. The first item on the agenda is the motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the community engagement plan, and we have a public input session this evening. Dr. Taylor, did you have anything to cover?
Not particularly.
Yeah.
This is one of the changes that came down from our state legislature to assure that school boards, we've always been communicative. We've always tried to be open and transparent. I think there are differences throughout the state. So this is just to get everybody in line with, to be sure you are being transparent, having sessions that the community can come and share their opinions if they so choose, express any concerns, ask any questions. So that's what this session is for.
And I was going to share some of the policy KC community engagement, but we do have a policy on community engagement. It's available for anyone to go online and read. Also on the Board of Education section or page of our website, you can go on there and pull up the community engagement plan, and it details all of the methods that you can engage with the school district. In fact, I would say there's probably more than are on this list, and there's copies of that available over there for everyone here.
I think the majority of the time, if we can just reiterate, our admin, it starts with teachers. If parents can communicate with teachers, express any concerns they have, talk through things, and if that's not comfortable, you can always go to admin. Building admin is always willing to listen. It's just keeping those lines of communication open. I've been a building admin, and it is always easier when you're able to communicate ahead of time about, during open house or the first week of school, some teachers have an annual goal where they want to call every parent in their classroom the first several weeks or a couple months, sometimes it takes, and touch base and just say, hey, I'm enjoying having your kid in class. If you ever have any problems, give me a call. The more we communicate, the more we can be on the same page. And when issues do arise, there's some trust built already. So we would just encourage everybody, reach out to teachers, reach out to building admin, and we're here all year long, so you can always call us at the district office.
I think all 7 of us are open to that. I would say we're probably going to guide you back to the teacher or the principal or the admin that can answer your question more specifically, but we're out there and available also. Anyone else have anything they'd want to contribute?
No, WAIO is every month. We got the public comment period too. So.
All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. I have a motion and a second to adjourn the public input session. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We will move on to open session of the meeting and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda are the Board of Education norms, which are available in board docs. And the next item on the agenda is the MSBA monthly report.
Welcome to the July edition of the Missouri School Boards Association's Board Report. We begin with a look at MSBA's Summer Summit held in Branson June 24th and 25th. The summit began with a thought-provoking keynote presentation from generational expert Megan Johnson. Megan is a generational expert, speaker, and author. Being a Gen Xer herself, Megan knew that negative generalizations about generations were unfair, untrue, and hurtful. So she began researching organizations of all sizes to debunk generational myths and discover the most effective ways to solve differences on the way to finding generational diversity.
Because true generational diversity is not about excluding one generation to make another generation happy. True generational diversity is bringing the strengths of every generation onto your school board, into your work environment, into your own homes, to bring out the best in everybody.
The Summer Summit also featured an awards luncheon recognizing outstanding students, such as the 2024 statewide Belcher Scholarship winner, Zach Shockey of Jefferson City. The luncheon was also an opportunity to celebrate board members who have achieved additional levels of board certification beyond basic state requirement levels and have achieved the designation of advanced, master, or distinguished certified board member. At the conclusion of the summit, during the delegate assembly, Jonathan Russell of the Neosho School District was sworn in as president of the Missouri School Boards Association after serving as vice president for the past year. He told board members attending the summit it's important to address and understand the challenges our schools are facing right now, with one of his key focus areas being literacy education.
Literacy is the foundation of learning. Children who develop strong reading skills and writing skills early on are better equipped to understand complex subjects, excel academically, and pursue higher education and career opportunities. Reading not only impacts academic performance, but also mental health. Strong readers are more likely to have higher self-esteem and confidence. They can also participate more fully in civic and community activities, becoming informed and active citizens. Investing in literacy education is an investment in the future. We need to make sure our students are prepared to lead and maybe even lead as future school board members. To make that future a reality though, we have to make sure our students are supported both in and out of the classroom.
MSBA state officers elected during the delegate assembly meeting held at the summit include President-elect Shelley Mantell of the Mountain View Birch Tree School District and Vice President Paula Hubbard of the Bolivar R1 School District. As the summit concluded, Dr. Mike Slagle, the superintendent of the Raymore Peculiar School District, recognized the outstanding contributions of outgoing MSBA President Ruth Johnson.
This is a bowl that was created by our students in one of our art classes in elementary school. And the groovy thing about this bowl is that each one of these little spirals is created by an individual student. And together, they're put together, and the teacher then glosses it over and creates this beautiful masterpiece. This is symbolic of your leadership. You have the ability to see the potential, the gifts, and the talents in each one of our students. And the way you lead, you bring it together so that something beautiful is created out of the individual pieces. On behalf of a grateful community and a superintendent who's very proud of you, congratulations and thank you for your service.
MSBA's positions on state and federal education issues are determined by the delegate assembly that will be meeting this coming October. If your school board has a position statement on an issue you would like to submit to the Advocacy Committee for consideration, you can do so this summer. The Advocacy Committee reviews those proposals and makes recommendations to the delegate assembly that determines MSBA's positions on issues. And registration will be open starting July 9th for the 2024 MSBA Annual Conference in cooperation with the Missouri Association of School Administrators and the Missouri Association of School Business Officials, to be held October 17th through the 19th in Kansas City. The event will once again feature numerous breakout sessions and workshops, many presented by school leaders from districts throughout the state, the Education Expo, and another great lineup of general session speakers. That's it for this month. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and we'll see you in August for the next MSBA Board Report.
So several of us attended the summer summit. I thought they were really good sessions. And while there, the board and administration were awarded the governance award. And I want to thank Chrissy for helping us get all the paperwork turned in.
Did you have the plaque here, Bailey grabbed it for me?
Awesome.
To get a picture with all of you there.
Perfect. And I know we mentioned last month, but also Mr. Gettinger and Mrs. Blue also were awarded advanced certification as board members. So congratulations again.
Good job.
All right. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Second?
would you like to do roll call?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So the substitute teacher list is on here. So we want to make sure we don't cast any votes if we are within 4 degrees of relation. So we'll do a roll call on the consent agenda. I have a motion to second. Mr. Bosler?
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner? Ms. Reesinger? Ms. Diesel?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mr. Gettinger?
Yes.
Ms. Blue?
I am abstaining.
Motion carries. Next on the agenda, we have public participation. Board members and administrators will listen to concerns and will respond when appropriate by mail or telephone at a later date. In order to speak during public participation, a public comment form must be filled out and submitted to the board president prior to the beginning of the meeting. Per policy BDDH-1, public participation at board meetings, following rules will apply to the public comment portion of the meeting. The public comment period will not exceed 15 minutes. No individual will be permitted to speak more than once during this period. Each speaker will be allotted no more than 5 minutes. Discussion will be limited to items on the posted agenda. All speakers must provide their name and address prior to speaking. If there is insufficient time for everyone to speak, the board will encourage participants to submit their questions in writing or utilize the process for putting an item on the agenda. I do not have any public comment cards. All right. Thank you, sir. Next is the report of the superintendent.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
It's nice to see you all again. This was my first presentation in Canva that I could actually go back to last year's and make a copy of it and roll it over because this is when I started last year. So this is officially the start of year 2. We've been fast and furious over in the board office. There's been a lot going on. You'd think things would slow down, but first on our agenda is the school tax rate hearing. It's set for August 27th, which is next month, and I have a note to myself to remind everyone that it's a week later than our normal meeting, and that was approved by the Board of Education last month. But the tax rate hearing will start us off at 6:30, and we'll be here just like always. I should have all of the information from the assessor and from the state auditor's office as well. We'll be set up to get that done. Date reminders for the upcoming school year. The first day of school will be August 19th, Monday, August 19th, unfortunately. We would love to start on Thursday and Friday, but the state legislature has passed that law. In order to get the number of days that we need in first semester, it behooves us to start on Monday. So first day of school is Monday, August 19th. Some open houses, Bloomsdale and St. Genevieve Elementary, pre-K through K on August 14th. The next evening on the 15th, we'll have Bloomsdale and St. Gen 1st through 5th grades. And then the following week on August 22nd, St. Gen Middle School, and the week following on August 28th, St. Genevieve High School. Wanted to take a moment to throw a shout out to our summer maintenance and custodial staff. I have noticed a tremendous improvement in floors as they go through and scrub them down and wax them, and it's always nice to see those shiny again before the kids come in. They've been doing a fantastic job. This is just a few of them here, but we wanted to take a moment publicly to recognize their hard work. Like I said over in the board office, it's fast and furious. It doesn't slow down during the summer. For these guys, it's their busy time. They come in and they get after it for 8 hours a day in order to be ready for kids to come back. So shout out to them. They're doing a fantastic job. Like Mr. Bova said earlier, our school board received the Governance Team Award, and I wanted to take a minute to read from the news release that we received. The St. Genevieve County R2 Board of Education is among 31 Missouri school boards earning the Missouri School Boards Association 2024 Governance Team Award. This prestigious award is based on the outstanding commitment of the school board and superintendent to ongoing professional development and effective governance practices. The award also recognizes their commitment to regional and statewide leadership and to actively participate in legislative advocacy for public schools and students they serve. The achievement includes the district being fully accredited, all 7 school board members completing the essential new board member certification, as well as refresher training requirements, at least 2 board members attaining the advanced level certification, at least 1 board member attaining a master's level certification, at least a quorum of the board and the superintendent attending the 2023 MSBA Annual Conference and Regional Meeting during the past year, and then a representative attending the 2024 MSBA Advocacy Day, and then a board member representative participating in MSBA's Delegate Assembly. That's a lot. I know, having quite a bit of communication with you all, how dedicated you are, but this demonstrates to the public just how dedicated you are as well. Those are a lot of things to accomplish. You should feel proud of yourself. I know I'm proud of you. I've been proud of this Board of Education for a long time. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And then next, I am going to turn it over to Mrs. Bailey Otto, our Director of Communications, for her annual communications report.
Hi, everybody.
Good
Hello. How are we all doing this evening?
Good.
Okay, so we do this every year. I want to say this is maybe my second or third year that we've done one for the communications department. But I always like to point out that while it says communications department and I'm the communications director, I do have a lot of help, and I always like to start out with that because we see so many really awesome things that are shared out, and a lot of times I'm a conduit. So I really do want to point out that a lot of these things start either at like a committee level, the classroom level, and work their way to me, and we kind of beautify it, clean it up, share it out. So I'm really focusing on sort of the strategic communications, but a lot of the storytelling we see, that's really more like a grassroots deal. And I'm always incredibly thankful for everybody who puts something together, sends me photos. And I also like to point out, if you're in the buildings, if you're at an event and you snap some pictures, text them to me. I'm always ready for all of those photos. I know I get several every time you guys go, and you go to the state legislature, you go to your conferences, so things like that. But when you're in the buildings too, for Read on Missouri Week, things like that, just text me a couple photos. Doesn't matter what time of the day. Okay, so communications department. That covers all of these various areas. So when we're talking about communications, I'm strictly sort of district level. So those are the internal communications with our employees, external being our families, the community members, and then we've got groups such as yourselves, the board, different committees that are sort of those groups with people who are both employees and community members, and those hybrid groups as well. So when we're talking about any sort of strategic communications, we go through the different audiences and who needs to know what, and try and make sure that we're hitting all of that key messaging for those particular groups. So strategic and crisis communications under my purview as well, public relations and marketing, community relations, branding and style, and then media relations as well. I am a member of several committees. I am just present at several committees. I take notes for some committees. It's a little bit of a hodgepodge. So I just like to be in the room where it happens. Just kidding. Do a little bit. But so we've got CSIP committee, facilities, calendar, Dragon advisory team, community services forum. That's actually a community group, and then the PD committee as well. I did put a photo of the CSIP as well, and I know Dr. Lazard's been working on that, and we've got that for you tonight. Just a quick overview. My goals really never changed. When I got here in 2019, I did several surveys, and I was really trying to garner what communications people wanted, what they felt like they already knew, where were the holes, where were the areas that they really felt like they needed more communication from the district level. So through those surveys, through some of those groups that I met with, these were the 4 goals that I started with, and every year I come back to them, and I haven't really found a need to change them up. So I always start out with the transparent, proactive, systematic communications, just meaning I'm always going to, when we've got district level initiatives, you're going to have your legal side, and then you're going to have Bailey over here that's like, yes, but can we just say a little bit more? Can we just try and make sure that we're talking to the groups and making sure that we can try and answer their questions as much as possible, because people people do appreciate that. They understand that they can't know everything, but when you can explain that to them a little bit, it really does go a long way. So proactive just meaning I really, really strive to say, okay, what's the first question I'm gonna get? Can we answer that before I get it? And then systematic, so I want people to know, hey, I've heard some things bubbling up around town. I haven't heard anything yet, but I know that Bailey sends out board briefs once a month. Typically, she'll put something in there. So they know, hey, maybe I can just wait a few days, and then that way they know when they're going to hear from us. Supporting and empowering faculty and staff in representing our district. I've done several PD sessions with faculty and staff, especially the first few years I was here, where we talked about key messaging. We talked about we're a small community. The town is 4,000 in St. John. County is 18,000. Still very small. It's got a small town feel. And if you're at the grocery store and you're a staff member, whatever is going on, the people in that grocery store think that you know what's going on. So whether you do or not, there's that idea of you work for the district, we're one of the biggest employers in the area. You're thought of as sort of an ambassador and in the know person, even if you feel like you don't. So I always share with them, if you don't know how to answer something, just make sure that you say, hey, either these are the key messages I've had in an email, here's what I know about it, or hey, I can put you in touch with the person who can answer your questions. Continuing to strengthen relationship with families and community, that one kind of speaks for itself, and then telling our story. I kind of fall back on the whole show, don't tell on this, which is funny because I write a lot, but I do feel a lot of times that storytelling really is going to be those visuals and those in-person interactions with our students and teachers. Internal communications. So SGR2 Family Connection, that's that e-newsletter that is shared out Friday of every board meeting week. I actually think we did that this past year, first year, so yay. But essentially that e-newsletter is called the 5 Things You Need to Know. It gets lengthy, but it does have 5 bullets, so you can skip to the ones that you want to read about. And then I always do include the board briefs from each month there, so they can go through. So the folks who aren't here, they can go through and read with a little bit more context about what they missed at the meeting. ThrillShare, that's our program that sends out phone calls, texts, emails, push notifications. The text is bold, but that's just because we're really trying to streamline things and make PowerSchool talk with ThrillShare so that our lists are as updated as possible, so we're getting there. And then the email listserv, so we have an all-employees email listserv and then listserv by building as well. External communication, so ThrillShare again, that includes live feed updates to the website. So if I send out a text, I can also make it a push notification, an email, a phone call, or it goes to the live feed update on the website. If I'm sending out a text, I'm also putting it on the live feed of the website. So if you ever get any questions about, oh, I didn't get that text, or oh, I didn't read about that, I promise it's on the live feed. I put everything there. Just because well, one, it's helpful for me to go back and see what we shared when, but 2, you could go and just scroll back and see what you need to find what you might have missed. Crisis communications, that's also what we use ThrillShare for, athletic updates, cancellations, and important updates. I am trying to sort of get a handle on exactly how much we're sharing via text, because I do know that people can get sort of tired of the constant text, and I know you're getting them from the buildings, you're getting them from the district level. I don't want people opting out, but at the same time, there are a lot of things that you need to know right now, with public schools and education and making sure that you have the information you need. So it's a balancing act. SGR2 Family Connection, so again, that's that e-newsletter. This is just the version for families. Comes out the same day. I want to say, honestly, most of the time they're probably 75% the same. Social media, so we've got district accounts, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. The buildings all have a few different accounts themselves. They actually run those. There are fantastic people at the building levels who kind of help keep those up and running. We have students helping out with those as well. Dragon's Digest, so we just sent out the end of the year June edition of the Dragon's Digest. I don't know if you noticed, it was riddled with QR codes. So I'm getting to the point where I can't fit everything in. and I'm gonna try and pivot a little bit on the back to school version as well. It says 3 to 4 times a year. It does not happen. I wish it did. That's part of my goals for this next year that we'll talk about, but that's that 12-page newsletter. It goes to all 3 zip codes, every residence in the county. There have been a few that we've also sent to businesses, I think like the Prop SG version, so we can send them to businesses as well. Board briefs, so again, that's that unofficial summary, monthly meetings. The app, always tell everybody to download those apps, get those push notifications. Dragon alerts, that is specific to athletic texts. And so you can go, you can sign up at that link, but you can also opt out at that same link. News releases, I put 150 plus here because that's going to come into play later. So this year we did over 150 of those. When I say news releases, what that means is it could be a small paragraph or it could be like a 5-page document, depending on what it is. And 95% of those are shared the exact same way. So I'll share them with local media. They will go on our websites, depending on if it's, all of them are on the district, but then they'll feed into the building sites depending on who all is involved. And then those also go to our social media as well. And then Vitable, that's our video creation app. I'm not going to go through all of these because I think y'all kind of have a good idea, but I just kind of help out in some form or fashion in all of these. These are things that happen every year. So some of them have full-blown communication plans. Some of them are very formulated, which is amazing. I was so happy when I got to the point where it was like, oh, yes, I did that. I can just copy, paste, boom, 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 share it out. So we can, next one. This is just a fun little collage of different things from that last slide. So when we talk about board elections each year, we do those board candidate Q&As that we put together. SGNEA and our retired folks in the MSTA put together questions for potential board candidates. We share them out. Everybody responds, sends those back to me, and then we make sure to get those Q&As, the answers back to the community. We also print those out and put them around the school district as well in the workrooms so that teachers and staff can also read those answers from those board candidates. We've got the color run below, and then just a few, graduation obviously, up at the top right. We always do a new teacher shout out as well. Monthly things, so board briefs. When I say employee recognitions, this is one of those things that's really helpful from the buildings. They will do these and then send me the write-ups, the photos. We will just sort of like put them all in the same template and then share them out. And then we also put each building's sort of that employee spotlight section right there on their website. So if you go to a building website, scroll down to the employee spotlight, you can read the amazing things that their coworkers have said about them, and you can go back through the whole year. Website updates. I would love to say that that's monthly. It's on the monthly slide. It doesn't have a monthly. E-newsletter. We already mentioned new baby gifts. So this year we did something a little different because essentially we were doing cute little baby onesies that said Dragon in training, but we didn't think about the fact that people are having like multiple children. So at one point they were just getting the same onesies. We were like, okay, so we pivoted and we found this really cool company online who does little puzzles. And so we did one that said St. John, one that says Dragons, and they have been a hit. People love them. And we got 2 different kinds, so we're up to 3 babies now. The editorial calendar, that's something that Erin Joker, she's amazing. She helps out with the editorial calendar each year. Essentially, I actually want to say I stole that from Erica Chandler in Acton. She has this amazing spreadsheet of all of the different things that you could have in a school year, and then the various platforms you could share the different messaging. So I copied that over several years ago, made it our own, added all of the SGR2 things, and then that kind of gives us a template throughout the year because it's crazy. That way we can kind of do some of those things before they actually happen, so like National Counseling Week, things like that. That way we're not scrambling last minute for some of those shout outs. And then school visits as well. Oh, this is awesome. I love this. So Audra Womack at the middle school, ELA, she has a publications class, 8th graders, who they come in and we talk Canva, we talk design styles, we talk, hey, quit using 18 different fonts on the same design. We talk a little bit about color and the fact that you have to have some differentiation in that contrast for some folks to be able to read it in terms of accessibility. So by the time we get a couple months in, they turn out some really great designs. So that editorial calendar I mentioned, Mrs. Womack will go through and identify several of those different days or events. She'll give them to the kiddos, and they will actually make their own designs, submit them to district office. We'll pick the ones we like best. We'll send them their edits so that they can get used to that sort of editorialization of it, and then they'll send them back to us, and we share them on the district website and social media accounts, and we mention their name, make sure they get credit. So those are some of the fun ones. I always love when they do something with a dragon like that. So. We don't have to watch this whole thing, but this was just a fun little social media that I share every year. I think it's the Instagram video that gets the most likes. Probably, I'm gonna say it's because of Justin Beaker right now. He's yelling STDGEN, and then they'll do their hat toss. So once I find some of these things that I know are going to be a hit year after year, especially with the kiddos, because they are not on Facebook, and I know they're on Instagram, but they're not following us. So I've got a couple of them. So this one blows up every year, and the kids really do like seeing this. I also like to point out that while we say these things, like, hey, these are the things we do every year, here's what we do every month, my goodness. So we just have a lot that's new every year that you just cannot anticipate. So I love Kurt Medic. Next one. I also love Bert. So here's just this year, things that, yes, we knew some of it was going to happen, but it's also not every year, it's not one-offs. So we have our first year superintendent. We've got the ongoing Prop SG projects, competency-based education that was a $400,000 grant, revamping the CSIP. We joined the Success Ready Students Network, and they're in their own little world trying to get this assessment sort of figured out for our cohort. We had the lead testing, and then taking on transportation services, sort of switching HES, bringing on HES for the custodial services, behavior intervention programming, state legislation coming down, and then the insurance consortium going in a new direction. So those are all things that, to some extent, we communicate about, but even if we're not communicating about these things every day, I am in the meetings talking about them so that I can understand all of the ins and outs, so then when it's time to communicate about these things, I can have the key messaging, I can kind of know what people are going to want to know about them, so that we can communicate as clearly as possible when the time comes to make sure that those communication plans are ready. And this is sort of what some of those, sort of we call them tactics. So when you're talking about strategic communication, you're talking about your goals and what you hope people know, and through the key messaging, tactics are what it actually looks like. So we've got the CSIP there. Our principals were in a meeting talking about competency-based learning. We made a new webpage specific to being in the students or Success Ready Students Network. The transportation portion right here, that is a list of sort of kind of like an FAQ about how that came about. That was in the recent Dragons Digest. Dr. Taylor's superintendent transition plan that we reference back to. Middle school, and then we've been doing groundbreakings at some of the projects, so middle school groundbreaking invitation. We also made a new webpage for the Get the Lead Out of School Drinking Water Act. So that was specific to the legislature, and all public school districts had to do it. Make sure people know that from the video. And then down at the bottom, yeah, so that was. So what we did last year in terms of like goals from the year before, continued Prop SG communications and engagement, because some of those projects are rolling off, we're getting new projects coming on. Consistent, our SGRT Family Connection, like I mentioned, I think we actually did get that. I wanted to go monthly this last year. We were doing bi-monthly the year before, and I wanted to hit the Fridays following the board meeting. So I think we did that. Updated text and phone fields and lists. For a while, we were working on manual lists for everything in ThrillShare because it was very difficult to get our student information system, PowerSchool, to sync over perfectly. There's just so many roles that are a little different. I mean, when you've got 300 plus employees, it looks a little different in the way that those people are saved and then imported. But I think we're in a good place there. Continued website updates, so that's just talking about sort of wayfinding and adding new pages. People will ask where things are, so then I can think, okay, well, where did you go looking for it, anticipating to find it? It's not there, now I know to add a link there, sort of thing. And then undertaking those communication initiatives that we talked about earlier with the birth. And just, again, thanking everybody who had a hand in those. This is a link. It's Dr. McClard. So,
Anywhere?
I would like to say that this is updated all the time. It is not. But I do try to keep it updated. So that's what I did the last couple weeks. It has a main page. If you go to www.sgdragons.org, it's got the big Prop SG link. This is going to take you here. So this is the Prop SG Hub. And if you scroll down, Dr. McClard, this main page, this is everything really district related. So it's going to have the most recent timeline. It's going to have the most recent cost estimates. So current cost estimates, and scroll down a little bit more, current timeline. And as you go down, it's older information. So if you're starting at the top, that's the most recent. And then that's how it works with all the pages. So if you scroll back up, Dr. McClard, you can see our projects listed there. That's going to take you to each page. So you can just click on, not technology, that was older. Yeah, that one works. So the way that we have it set up is the rendering, the floor plan, what it looks like. We've got a video here. This was a kindergartner walking into the new Bloomsdale entrance on the first day of school. I think it was Lincoln.
It was Lincoln.
He did a fantastic job. So this was him walking all the way through. He was holding a GoPro, and it was kind of heavy, so he did a really good job. He made it all the way to his classroom, his first day of school, and it was really cool. You got to see the logo, and this was the first time the students saw that edition because it was finished over the summer. So this was just a really, we got to wait because this Gettinger is so excited to see him. So he really had a good time with this. He did it all at once.
He was shy the morning of. He's like, I only want to do it, and we got 3 studies going to do it. So.
So yeah, then we got him to his classroom. So yeah, he was a trooper. He did a really good job. So then yeah, it just kind of, it works the same way. So everything up toward the top, it's chronological. This is going to be the newest information. So each one of those projects has its own page. And then we also still have those original portions on the website, like prior to passage of Prop SG, we had a list of FAQs. All of that information is still there because if anybody has questions or tries to think back, I mean, it's been a few years already. 2022 is crazy how time flies. But I want the same information that we had still available because sometimes people remember things differently, and I can say, oh, nope, here it is. And as I make these updates, if I do have to remove something, I save it, so I have an archive of old web pages as well. So if we do need to go back and find something, we can. Okay, so if you want to jump back. And then these are just some other sort of tactics and how we shared about Prop SG other than the web page. Because community members, quite honestly, unless they're really excited or really interested in it, probably aren't going to visit the webpage. So I always make sure we have a page or two of Prop SG updates in that Dragons Digest. So these just went, this was last August's version, and then this past June. Social media, so depending on the building project, we're sharing it all at the district level, but then also on those building pages as well. And then I have that in there too, it's the same one. The e-newsletters, so those are those Friday e-newsletters. This was a really cool event at the middle school for that last beam. We had vinyl lettering SGMS put on the last beam. We We had a bunch of kiddos who had positive office referrals. They got to come outside, write their names on the beam, and then watch it get installed. So that was really neat. And it was cool for these kiddos as well because they're right next to the ELA classroom. So these kids have been watching this this construction go on all year long. So that's been really neat. And then this is just one of the videos we did for one of the concrete pours at the Early Childhood Center. Areas of focus for this next year. So continuing the Progress Due Progress and facility planning, continuing to support the district's Success Ready Students Network and the competency-based education initiatives that we're undertaking. For my own department, I'm trying to be more mindful of the time and the effort put on particular areas, right? So I would like to focus more on strategic communications, so that's going to be more of those initiative communications that we've been talking about, a lot of those things that do seem like they pop up, whether we know they're coming down the pipe or not, or knowing when. So when I say that we were only able to do 2 Dragon's Digests a year, I would love to do 4, I'd love to do 6. But that also means that my time is probably going to be taken away from other areas. So it's trying to figure out how best to do that, because I do think that there's room to be communicating with our community more. Because I am well aware of the fact that Facebook has been around for a while, but we only have so many people who are on Facebook, and most of it's like 1 or 2 generations. We're getting to those younger parents, and they're just not on Facebook. Or you get to my age, and maybe you're getting a little jaded, and you're not on Facebook. So, you know, it's one of those things where I need to be sure that the amount of time we're spending on sharing information and sharing the good news and telling those good news stories is putting it in a place that people are actually going to see it and interact with it. So when we're doing 150 news releases and I'm sharing that with our local media, yes, it's important to share it with the newspaper. Yes, it's important to share it with the local radio stations. But I also need it to be accessible in as many ways as possible. And that might mean that maybe it's only 50 news releases. And instead of sharing absolutely everything the buildings are each doing on the district page, they are sharing that on their pages, and I'm focusing a little bit more on communication plans for those district initiatives. That's where I would like to be. And I do want to mention that here now, because if y'all can maybe understand maybe why there might be a change in that direction. Because I do think there's some room to be communicating with our community, and it does kind of align with the fact that we've joined that Success Ready Students Network. When we're talking about competency-based learning, we're talking about bringing in community members to say, hey, we're developing Portrait of a Graduate. We're sending these kiddos out into our community. Many of them come back here. They're going to be working here. They're going to be business leaders here, joining organizations. What do you see is important now when they graduate? What would you like to see, in future employment? So it's really having those conversations and those community relations, and I think that's important as well. And I am going to mention as well is public education is moving along. Our state legislature is going in a particular direction. And it might not necessarily, at some point public schools are going to have to market ourselves a little bit more. And when we talk about that, it's going to take time away from talking with our families as much, because they're already here. It's going to have to be talking to the community about, hey, this is what our teachers are doing that's so awesome. This is what our kids are doing that's so awesome. And that means we're probably going to have to change the way that we interact with our audiences, and that's going to change a little too. It'll be probably more community-based as well. So. And then assisting in integrating transportation services. So as we move along, that is whatever is needed. So webpage, talking about any kind of communication support they need. So that's there on the table as well. Oh, and I didn't mention early childhood as well. So we're going to have an early childhood center, and there's going to be all sorts of things that pop up. But one of those things is obviously going to be a robust website where we have all of that information for preschool applications, and I mean it's a complete new building, so that's going to take some time. Does anybody have any questions for me? I think that's the last.
No, don't be. What did we do before we had a community?
No kidding. When you came, we were kind of in the twilight. We're full sunshine now, and I love it. Thank you.
You're gonna make my face hurt. I appreciate that.
At Summer Summit, I went to a session on community engagement, and the lady asked, who all here has a communications director? And, you know, and she said, put your hands down. The rest of you need to hire a communications director. So.
It's one of those things where, I mean, even in school, you didn't realize that it's something missing, but I could say that about so many positions now. It's just evolving so quickly, you know, so I'm so happy to be here. I'm happy to be in my hometown and, you know, being able to work with you all, but like, I do want to bring it back around. I mean, I appreciate that sentiment so much, but at the same time, I'm talking with our folks every day. They're giving me this information, the amazing things they're doing, and I'm just trying to share that out. So I really do want to point that out. It's a team effort. So.
Yeah, if you go back to that slide, you don't have to go back to it actually, but if you go back in your mind to that slide of stuff that came up this year.
It really, when you start putting it down, I mean, last year was the same way. I was like, oh my gosh. But yeah, you start writing it down and you're like, you're doing really well. You're doing really well.
As we navigated COVID, there was often a quote that entered my mind: you don't learn to sail in calm seas. That's applicable to Bailey as well.
Right.
Of the things that we've been through, she's thoughtful, she's smart, she's insightful, she's not afraid to take me on head on. When she feels differently and strongly about something, we're better for having her as an employee here in our district. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Bailey.
Thanks, Bailey.
Before we move on, quick question. Do we have to have a reopening plan this year?
No.
Kudos, great. Love to hear that.
Oh.
And we're just open.
Want to vote?
Oh, I am marking things off my
And
list.
that is the end of my report.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, on to unfinished business. Prop SG?
We're going to start with Prop SG.
All right.
St. Genevieve Middle School, we're waiting on finalizing the upgrades that were required to be made from the elevator inspector. There were some heat issues with the mechanical room, and they needed us to put in a mini split with some ducting in order to ameliorate that. So that's in process. Of course, we had to do a change order for that. As soon as that's done, they'll be back in to inspect it. It's ready to go. They just have a lock on the elevator until the inspection is approved. So, I was so excited to see this. I was happy the rain stopped long enough for Bailey to get out there with the drone. It's actually starting to take shape. It looked like a building. If we go around behind it, I think it's a couple slides in, you'll start to see some brick outline the rooms of the Early Childhood Center. It's going fast and furious. Now that it's under roof, they'll be able to work rain or shine inside and get us to completion. So coming along nicely.
Yeah, I walked it. It's huge.
Yeah,
It's bigger
it's
than what you
big.
think it is. It's great.
Out there in that field by itself, it doesn't look that big, but then you get in it, and it really makes an impression, so we're happy about that. Parking is ongoing. Bowman came in and did that lower level. We'll talk in a minute about what they're doing currently. They took, oh, there it is. They took a little break from moving to the upper level, but that's next on their agenda. They needed to jump in on St. Genevieve Elementary and have done quite a bit of work out front. So yeah, they started beginning of last week and have made it to this part. We did find, as always, we find things digging. We think lines are certain places and they're actually not on the drawings. We did find a clay pipe that was buried 10 feet deep. There's no reason not to dig down and replace the clay pipe because the building's going over the top of it. If something happens, we don't want to have to chip into concrete and go down. So we're going to go down and replace that. It's going to go a significant amount out into the parking lot. But I do want to point out where that fence is. You can begin to visualize where the buses are going to have to be parked in the afternoon, where they're going to be dropping off in the morning and the route they're going to have to take out of the parking lot. I have not shared, Mr. Jones, yet a picture of what afternoon pickup looks like, but
Just in time, right?
as soon as he gets a little more settled, we're going to drop that as well. So yeah, we're making significant progress on Prop SG. Are there any questions?
I had a parent ask me about pickup for Dragon's Den. Do you know where that's going to be at?
So I would anticipate front of the high school. Mrs. Gegg and Mr. Kingery, at the end of the year, we kind of walked out there and talked through some things. They were going to look at the end of the kindergarten hallway out there on the road, but that might create some congestion issues. So I think they finally landed on putting some personnel in place and having kids enter the front of the high school. The fifth graders are already in the cafeteria there anyway, and we have supervision there. So if we could just put somebody out front to direct them down towards the elementary area, I think we can handle that, and I think that's their plan for Dragon's Den as well.
Okay.
You just want me to
Go.
go? Okay. Next on the agenda is transportation updates, and rather than me regurgitating information to you, I thought it would be nice if Director of Transportation Ken Jones came in and introduced himself. You got to meet him and allow you to ask any questions that you might have, and have him give us an update on where we are with transportation a couple weeks in.
Well, thank you all for the opportunity. I'm very excited to be here. A little bit about myself. I've been in education for 23 years. All 23 years were at Crystal City. So it's a big move for me, but I'm really excited about it. Been here since the 1st of July. Right now, we are in the process of getting everything legal. We made a deadline and got 4 buses legal by last week when we had to get that done, and I'm anticipating by next week that we will have all your buses where they could actually be out on the road. And I don't know if any of you have seen it yet. We do have all the buses with the St. Genevieve County R2 on it now. There's still a little bit more work that has to be done for your buses to be illegal. There's some DOT numbers and things that we still have to get off of there. And the mechanics today finished all the inspections on all the buses. I will be heading to Jeff City on Friday to hopefully get them to get about 40 plates to me within an 8-hour day. It's a process. I don't know if any of you have ever been to Jeff City to get anything done with that type of thing, but I have an appointment, and that's where we're at on that. Next week, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., and you're all more than welcome to come by. We're going to have a little meet and greet. I probably have met about a third of the drivers and such, and we're going to have them all come to the depot on Wednesday, have some donuts in the morning, maybe some brats in the afternoon, that type of thing, where I can meet them face to face, and hopefully kind of wrap up the transition period from them coming from Fowler to you all. We're going to set up their appointment to do onboarding with Chrissy and Megan on next Wednesday. So we're probably only a couple weeks away from having legal buses and having bus drivers on payroll. So we're getting very close to that. I'll tell you this, your facility out there is very, very nice. It's a very nice bus depot. The fleet is a little aged, so that's something down the road we'll want to dive into for moving forward, because a lot of the fleet is almost the same year or real close, and you won't want to buy a whole fleet again. So we'll want to get into a plan on that where we're kind of culling out the old and bringing in some new along the way. But the facility's wonderful. The staff that's already out there have been very open-armed to me, and they're working hard. So we're making a lot of progress. We've got a little ways to go. I think after next week, and we see that almost all the drivers are coming back, I'll breathe a little easier. But the staff here has been more than welcoming and very, very helpful from what, for me, it's central office. I hear it's called the White House. I love that. But that's a little bit about me and everything that's going on so far in what would be about 2.5 weeks.
Can you repeat that date for me again, the open house?
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
Next
It'll be 24th.
Wednesday, 8 a.m. And I'm going to stay all the way to 5. That way, if there's some of the bus drivers that are working a summer job, then I'll wait till they get there. So got a good response on that. I think after a meeting that Dr. Taylor and Chrissy and a few of us and Bailey had this week, I feel a lot more comfortable about most of the staff coming back, which, as you all know, across the state, this is not a St. Gen issue. Bus drivers is a nation issue. And it's a process of, if you're not a bus driver, getting you to that. And so I'm really hoping that the majority of them come back. I think they will, because it would be very hard to, in this short amount of time, get someone licensed up. It's a process. Now, we can do that, and we will. I am ELDT certified to do that training, but it does take a little bit.
Well, welcome to St. John.
Thank you.
We're excited.
I've known, like I said, I've been in Crystal City for 23 years. I'm a 23-year special education teacher for my first 12 years. And my last 11 years, I've been an activities director and director of transportation. And it just happened by chance. I told Dr. Taylor in the story the other day, I actually wasn't looking for a new job. I had a friend and colleague who was looking for one, and who was retired and still wanted to work a little bit more. And he had asked me to keep an eye open because, as long as I have, you have a few connections. And I just happened to one day look, and it said St. Gen director, and this particular friend of mine that has a lot of admin experience. I thought, he would go to St. Gen. And when I clicked on it, it said director of transportation. I went, so I don't feel bad about it because he's not a director of transportation. One phone call led to another, and here I am.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Glad to have you.
Appreciate it.
It's all new to us too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Continuous school improvement plan.
And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. McClung.
All right. So, we just talked about elevators. I figured I'd throw one in on my presentation. So, the overview of the CSIP, I put this together for you. We'll go ahead and skip to floor 6 here. And we'll look at monitoring progress. Actually, we'll go back because I want to go over that overview.
Yeah.
All right, so CSIP overview, the elevator speech. An elevator speech is basically a speech that you can give when you're on an elevator and you just give a short synopsis. So this is kind of the elevator speech for the CSIP. Our CSIP, why do we have it? One, we're required to have it. But the other reason we have the CSIP is it's our guiding document. Everything else should fall under that. So these are the priorities of the district. It's put together with all of our stakeholders and community input. So it's not just a few people sitting in a room. It's built to reflect the community. Who is impacted? Primarily our students is who we want to impact, but it also impacts everybody else that touches the school. Our particular CSIP that we're proposing is not only going to impact students, parents, teachers, admin, everybody that works under the roof, but it's also going to impact stakeholders because one of the goals is to get more community involvement in some of the processes that we have. And then what does it contain? Well, it contains goals, strategies, action steps, typical things in a CSIP or a strategic plan. and then who's responsible ultimately for getting it done, and then our finish dates, anticipated finish dates. Some of them, as I started putting them into the CSIP, kind of scared me. It seemed like everything was hitting in 2027. So some of those we might get to and say, well, maybe we need to push this one back a year so we can focus on this one. Some of them go as far back as 2029 because it is meant to be a 5-year plan. All right. And so then I'll jump to the monitoring progress here. So with our CSIP, we want to monitor progress. Well, that didn't go to it, did it? Dang.
That elevator's also unlocked.
I'm gonna have to have an inspection. All right. My role is to monitor the CSIP and the progress on it and give updates to Dr. Taylor. But it's important, that second bullet, and it came up in the MSBA report. It came up here. It takes a village to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. No one person, no group of admin can do it. It's going to take teachers, it's going to take our support staff, it's going to take parents, community members to accomplish some of these goals. Because ultimately, it's part of our motto. We're building on excellence, and that's what we're striving for. And in order to hit excellence, you're continuously improving. So a CSIP is not something where it's like, oh, we need to change this because it's not working. Our CSIP is actually something where we've got pieces and we've got a good start to some of these, and we want to build onto it. So our goal is kind of like the old, I think it's an old coach's adage. If not, that's what I'm going to attribute to, but get 1% better every day. And so if we're 1% better at the end of the day, by the end of the year, we're going to be more than threefold better than where we were. We're going to have a tracking sheet to help monitor progress. And we'll probably adjust and see how it works for us. But that tracking sheet is part of the CSIP. There's an extra column there for me on a separate one that's not public facing, where I can take notes, and when we get updates, we can kind of see where we are on our progress. A lot of that is going to fall down to building level administrators, because ultimately at the end of the day, when it comes to initiatives and making sure that things are happening, they're the ones that are there every day. They're the ones talking to teachers every day. Not to say that I won't have a part, or Jamie or Dr. Taylor won't have a part to play in that as well, but when it comes to everyday interactions and giving updates, it's really we're gonna really rely on them. And then part of the CSIP process is to give a quarterly Board of Education update. I know right now we give a monthly one that's connected to the old CSIP, and we tell you what standards. So we've kind of talked about different ways that we can do that to ensure at minimum there's a quarterly update. And we don't know if that's, are we picking goal 1, and this quarter we're talking about where are we on all the things in goal 1, or is it a different version of it? And then we'll have yearly CSIP updates. We'll kind of take stock of where are we at, where did we finish, are there things that we need to adjust, and then at the end of 5 years, we will make a big adjustment. I will say that part of our participation in the Student Success Ready Network is that we're getting an alternate APR, and there's conversations about a continuous improvement framework. I've got it here. They're on the 6th version of it. So it's kind of like your superintendent evaluation that just keeps morphing. But once that's finalized and DESE signs off on it, that is an alternate way of doing the CSIP and checking off for MSIP. Looking at this and having conversations for the last, 2 years with SRSN, I'm pretty confident that all the goals in here are reflected in our CSIP. So if there were adjustments that need to be made, it's not going to be a complete overhaul, and we're continuing to progress towards what we think will be the end goal for that waiver. All right, and then I'm going to back out. No, I'm not. All right, now I'm going to start from. All right, so our process. Put a little caution tape here because It was a little bit messy. I think when we first started, we had the intent of this comprehensive school improvement plan is truly comprehensive, but how many times are people pulling it off the shelf or printing it and using it as a guiding document? So our goal was to kind of make it a one-pager or at least simplify it. And so that's what we initially started the process off with. As we went through, there were a few bumps, and there was maybe a little bit more work than I anticipated that came along with it. There are definitely requirements that we still had to have. There was clarification as to what requirements do we need to have since we do have the waiver, and which ones are we not responsible for. But we started back in 2022. We used various data. We used surveys. I met with each faculty and took down their input. That way faculty had a chance to kind of say, these are our priorities, this is what we think. We also took a parent survey. We also looked at our quantitative data as well to kind of see where do we stand, what should our priorities be. We met as a committee in 2023. I believe we met twice, and those committee members are listed in the CSIP. We do truly appreciate the time that they took and spent, and what they did was they kind of developed our overarching themes for us, and we were able to take those back to the administrative team and say, okay, this is kind of the umbrella that we're working under. What are some things that we should be accomplishing to get to there? And so we had several, Dr. Nix can attest to it, we had several different meetings, revisions, and designing sessions. And there were certain points, I think at one point we were up to like 36 strategies. I think it was actually longer than what we started with. And we started figuring out, well, how do we combine these? Well, if we accomplish this one, we accomplished 1 and 2 along the way, so we really don't need those. And so that's how we kind of shortened it a little bit. We gained feedback from DESE, specifically our area supervisor who's responsible for signing off on CSIPs, and the regional professional development center. One of them was a former superintendent in Cape, so he had experience with how he's tracked it and how he used it. He gave me some feedback as well. And then the next step was to add action steps. So then we had to go back and come up with action steps for each strategy, and those are in the appendice as well. But then that was taken back to the admin team, and then they kind of signed off on it and said, yes, I think these align with what we're able to collect, what we're able to do. There may be, like I said, instances where we get through the year and they're like, listen, we needed to spend more. It's kind of like your pacing charts as a teacher. We spent more time here because we needed to, and we need this foundation, and we didn't rush to the next thing. So there's got to be this understanding as a board, like when we give reports, that yes, that's where we want to be, and we're going to continue to work there. But we also are people, and so we need to realize, like, we got to give and take a little bit. It's a living document, and that kind of goes to what I was just saying. The layout of it. We've got our table of contents and overview. Let me go back to my notes now. On pages 1 through 3. On page 4, I would say that is probably the biggest piece because that was our intended goal. That's the one pager. We wanted something where like a teacher could just pull it out and say, what are we trying to do here? And so in that one page, it has our goals and our pillars. And then then there's a deeper dive with goals and strategies following that. And then there's an explanation of the guidance and creation. Some of that is mandatory in CSIP completion, but it is good to have there for people that are interested. Like, how was it created? Who was involved? The needs assessments that were conducted, our plans that are aligned to it, and the way that we plan on tracking it. Pages 16 through 22 is almost kind of like your whole CSIP. It's complete with the action steps, the strategies, the goals, the pillars. And at the very end, it's the tracking sheet that I referenced earlier. So then you can kind of see, well, what's the timeline for each individual action step? So academic success is our first pillar. And we came up with terms as a CSIP committee. So this one was empower all members of our Dragon family to continuously progress toward tailored learning goals. Our ultimate goal is basically greater than or equal to 1 year's growth and have students involved, is what that's essentially saying. Within those academic success goals, we have two strategies. They're pretty self-explanatory, these two are. We want to make sure what we teach is effective and aligned, and we want to continue to monitor our impact, learn, and apply and make adjustments as we continue to learn. Those are our success goals.
Dr. McClark, before you move on.
Yes, sir.
I think it's important strategies listed there. Those are like, in my mind, the bread and butter of it. Do you have that? Can you just read those? I mean, I can't.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, that the CSIP, a lot of it is, formalizing a document, but the strategies is what we're really trying to.
Yeah, you got it. And as I was building that table for the tracking sheet, like you start to put things together and you're like, okay, I funneled down to here and we're doing this step. And if you don't zoom back out, you forget why you're doing that stuff, and it works the other way as well.
Yeah.
Like, well, we have this big cloud goal, but when you zoom in, like, how do we actually get to it? Oh, that's what we need to do. And so your strategies are kind of in between that. So under academic success, our two big strategies are revise and align curriculum and resources to improve student academic success. And then the second one is faculty implement effective teaching and learning strategies to obtain appropriate student growth. And when you break those down, there's a lot that goes into that. So when you start to look at action steps, there's a lot going on. Provide PD. Determine what is effective teaching. What do we mean by student growth? How are we going to track that?
Yeah, I think like a good one, for instance, is utilize assessments, data, and instructional practices, demonstrate on-track performance, annually increase percentage of students performing at or above grade level. We have both in math and reading in this one here.
Correct.
That's
Yes.
the things community wants to hear, what we're actually focusing on doing.
Yes.
So.
And then under our strategies, create and implement authentic assessments aligned to priority standards and update and deploy curriculum that is vertically and horizontally aligned. So we're looking at how do we track that, and then we want to make sure that it's aligned, that it's not in silos. If I'm teaching science and my favorite unit is rocks, and so is the other 3 grades above me, and we're all teaching rocks, maybe that's not a good use of our time. So we want to make sure that we're aligned and we're building on each other. Strategies to implement effective teaching and learning. The first one, create opportunities for content area professional development. Basically, we want to get better each day. And then the second one, faculty meet with students to collaboratively reach individual learning needs. That kind of aligns with goal setting for students. So having clarity of what is it I'm supposed to be mastering, where am I at now, what do I need to do to get to the next step. It's almost like when you think about like coaching in sports. And then the other two, Mr. Gettinger kind of pointed out, the third one is basically we're going to work to improve each year on our reading, and then we're going to improve our math each year. And those are two core areas that are focused on throughout the state. Our next one is collaborative climate and culture. So this is the next pillar. It's the big umbrella that some of our strategies and goals fall under. Foster a Dragon family culture that embodies a sense of pride and belonging and creates time and space for all. Basically, students should be partners in learning. Education's not done to you. It's an active process that involves everybody. And so that's where this one's getting at. And so when you look at that goal, cultivate and maintain effective partnerships to improve student learning. When I was making this presentation, I go, we only had one goal under that? That seemed like a lot, a big pillar with only one goal. But then I started getting into the strategies, and it made a little bit more sense, because under the strategies we start hitting, well, what does that really mean? Well, we're going to allow opportunities for student input decision making. That could be on the class level,
That could be on the school level or even on the district level. So when we say that, that could be a student determining they know what mastery is supposed to be, and they can determine how they're going to show mastery. I'm going to show you by doing a presentation, or I created this video for you, or I can recite the facts, or however they may be able to do it. And again, it's important to keep in mind, this is not happening tomorrow. This is a 5-year plan. The next one is develop opportunities for community engagement. This is a big piece of our market value assets, and we'll get to that with another goal. We need to we have great partnerships, and we want to continue to use those partnerships and maybe even expand. We want to apply some real world learning opportunities for students. And we mentioned Portrait of a Graduate, where we bring in community members and we get feedback on what are the skills and dispositions that students should have when they graduate from here. And so those are some of the partnership programming that we're talking about. And then the third one, foster family and community engagement through ongoing events and educational opportunities. I know we do a great job of this. I know we were discussing on the side about vaping, and I know like we have like a community health seminar where we have people come in, and parents or even community members can come to the school and kind of learn about, like, I think hidden in plain sight, I think it was. So you kind of learn a little bit more, but we want to continue putting on events like that. And as an example, on our PD day, our featured speaker, Dr. Cooney Horvath, he's a brain scientist. He focuses on how we learn. At 5 p.m. in the PAC on August, I believe, 12th, he's going to do a session called Student Learning at Home, How Your Child's Brain Works. And so anybody's able to come to that. It could be a parent, it could be grandparent, whoever. But those are some of the events that we're talking about. But we're also talking about like reading night at St. John Elementary. Just all those different events.
Dr. McClure?
Yes, ma'am.
Under collaborative culture and climate, I know our buildings collaborate, the staff collaborates between grade levels and even buildings, right? So is that addressed or not, because it's not really student driven? You know what I mean?
It is addressed. It fell, I think it originally started here because that made sense under collaborative climate, but I think it's addressed under academic success when you start going into action steps. So what happened was some of these strategies ended up moving to action steps because it was like, well, that makes more sense there. I know there's a piece in there about like looking at schedules, ensuring that there's vertical collaboration, and that there's time to be able to have that conversation with your colleagues. Yep. All right. Leadership and development is our third pillar out of 4. This one is equip all members of our Dragon family with resources to develop and sustain meaningful life skills. I put the kid president there because I think he's got, if you've ever watched him, he's definitely got some leadership skills. So this is basically asking what skills and dispositions do students need to chase their dreams? And they may be dreams that they don't even know they have yet. So what can we do to make sure that they have the toolbox to be able to open up doors that they want to access when they're graduating from here? Under leadership and development, we have 2 goals. Students explore and participate in varied pathways for post-graduation opportunities. And basically, we want to give them a multitude of experiences. We want them to be able to experience some things that maybe they didn't even realize they enjoyed. We also want to instill positive character and behavior attributes that lead to post-graduation success. So again, those dispositions, they used to be called soft skills. Now some people are calling them essential skills or pro-social skills. But some of those things that you can't quite just put your finger on and say, here's the test score that shows that you do this. So our strategies that go with the first one for exploring and participating varied pathways is we want to increase the percentage of students participating in extracurricular activities by focusing on providing a variety of programming. We got into conversation as an admin team, like, well, we don't want to keep expanding, expand there because there's a certain saturation point. So we put a variety of program, and some of the action steps are, well, we're going to survey out what's our participation? Is there a need for a certain club, or is there a need for this kind of activity? Or is our participation in certain areas dwindling, and do we need to reevaluate where we're putting our resources? So that's what that one is. I think a lot of times when we read extracurricular, we think automatically sports, but it's not just that. It's band, drama, art. It could be clubs, robotics clubs. I think there's just a whole variety of different clubs that we can say. And I think that from a personal note, we had a foreign exchange student, Solange, and we had her at the beginning of the year, but then she joined band, she joined drama, and I could see a difference in the way she carried herself. And she was picking up skills that, yes, she was learning, and she loved the school. Actually, she said she wants to come back here and teach. But she picked up skills that she said she never would have had before, like public speaking, being outgoing, starting conversations. And those are things that she told me that like she didn't necessarily have when she was back home. So providing different opportunities and helping students find their place, I think, is really what we're all about when we talk about some of that family piece of our motto as well. Designating time to participate in career exploration opportunities. We don't know what we don't know. And this is a good example of what I talked about earlier about we're doing a lot of great things and we're just building on top of what we're doing. So like when you go and look at like our career opportunities, we've got a lot of exploration opportunities. We've got the ICAP where students identify it. I think we're one of very few districts that got the CSIP points or the MSIP points originally because of what we were doing. But this is something where we just want to continue to build on what we have. And there may be one student once every 7 years that wants to do something that's kind of random that we never had thought of, and finding ways, well, how can we connect them with like some of those skills or expose them to what that is? Because my daughter went on a college visit, and I think she learned it was $60,000 a year for this particular college. And she's like, what if I don't like my major? And so it would behoove us to help our students figure out like what are some things I'm interested in before I'm laying down that kind of money. And do I even need to lay down that kind of money? Do I need to go to a trade school or apprenticeship? We also want to ensure 80% of our students graduate with market value assets. And so when we talk about that, we're talking about an industry recognized credential. We're talking about internships where there's a connection with mentoring, 9 or more hours of college credit, or entrepreneurial experience. And so when they do that entrepreneurial experience, they're going to have like a mentor leading them, giving them feedback. It's not just like creating something and then, oh, I sold it, so that's an entrepreneurial experience. We have a lot of that. Dr. Boyd put together a spreadsheet for me. We have, like, I think 70+% of our students that have some form of that. And so we have a lot of things in place. It's just a matter of, okay, how do we create a system to track that, and do we need to adjust some of our offerings? Under the next strategy, to instill positive behavior and character attributes for post-graduation success, we want to establish and utilize a portrait of a graduate. It was referenced earlier. August 13th, we're going to begin that work. We're going to have a morning and afternoon session. We're going to bring in some guest speakers. They're going to help lead some of that conversation. That's going to be the beginning of the work. We're hoping that by the first part of second semester, so by third quarter, that we'll have something in place where we can say, this is what we want a graduate from St. John to look like. We're going to further develop and implement behavioral supports to proactively address student needs. I know that this is something that we've talked about recently, so you can kind of see how some of these strategies and these goals reflect already some of the priorities that are part of our district as well. Implement methodologies to build pro-social skills and foster ownership of academic achievement. The key word there is ownership. John Hattie did a study where he pulled all of the studies together, I think 1,000+, and he figured out what the effect size is. And so a basic year's growth is about a 0.4 standard. And some of the strategies we're talking about for ownership are at like a 1 point, I think I have it. They've changed over time as he's re-examined this. Well, I don't have it. I think it's, there it is. 0.96 for one of them that I found, and a 0.64. So when we're talking about a 0.96 effect size, we're talking about almost 2.5 times more learning than what you would typically get during a normal school year. So when we're looking at some of these strategies, we're looking at, well, what's the impact that we're doing? Because I think Tim Ferriss talked about medicine and the minimal effective dose. And that's kind of what we're looking at. When you go talk to teachers, they'll tell you there's a lot on my plate. And so what we want to do is what can we do that's going to have the biggest impact, and what's the least amount of time that we can spend on it in order to have that impact. So instead of spending, I don't know, if you're training for running, instead of spending 18 hours a day running to get ready for your race in 6 months, you probably should re-examine, like, well, how am I spending my time, and have a plan together. And that's kind of the same thing with this ownership with students is when we're looking at strategies, there's 10 gazillion strategies that teachers can put in place. And most of them have a positive effect. Some of them have just a minimal effect. Some of them have more than a year's growth effect. And so when we're looking at fostering ownership for academic achievement, we're talking about having a high impact strategy. I'll get off my soapbox there. The last one is further develop and implement an attendance intervention plan to proactively address regular student attendance. In conversations, I think we are doing a great job at this, and looking at the data we are. But this is a statewide, it's kind of like what you referenced with transportation. It's not just a statewide, it's a national-wide trend of student absenteeism. So we just want to continue to keep that a focus and have that in the CSIP. And then our last pillar is kind of like a catch-all. We decided as a committee to call it the Dragon Flight Plan. It's to develop strategies to continue to enhance and to grow our Dragon family traditions and excellence. So basically, this is a pillar that's going to catch what are the other guiding documents that help move us forward. And so when we look at our different goals, there's 4 goals under this one. And it's basically create a flexible and adaptive infrastructure that can respond to changing needs and support the long-term success of the district. So that's a lot of words to say. Let's look at our facilities and determine, are we growing? What are our populations that are growing? Are there areas where we need to update? Are we meeting the growing needs? And as times change, is the building still meeting those needs? And are we continuing to maintain the areas, or do some of them need updates? For instance, like maybe an HVAC or something like that. Manage finances responsibly to ensure the district's long-term stability. This one basically says that we're going to prioritize and align with the CSIP when we're looking at spending our money. So we have, a certain amount of money, and right now with tax protests, that's a little bit less than what we would normally have. And so we need to be responsible in spending that money and making sure that it hits the priorities of the district. And again, the CSIP is kind of your overarching umbrella, so everything should align to that. Building plans and our other plans as well. The other one is incorporate technology to boost student learning and development. This one was kind of a hot topic because you have to read it closely. It's to boost student learning and development. It's not more technology. And so that's the key, is that we're not asking teachers to use more technology. We're saying, let's use it in a way that's effective. If you're using it as the same way you would use a pencil paper, maybe you don't need the technology. If you're using it in a way that enhances collaboration or creativity, maybe it's a good use of it. So looking at those different strategies of how can we use our technology in a meaningful way. And then the last one, implement and review the CSIP to evaluate performance. Basically what gets monitored gets done. Ultimately, again, it falls to the building, and it's kind of our job to coordinate it, report it out, and support it along the way. Last few ones. So strategies that fall under that, these have pretty much the same strategies as the goal, because if we're going to have a facilities plan, it's basically, that's the strategy, is that we're going to review and update the district's long-term facilities plan with goals ensuring that they are safe, accessible, well-maintained, and updated, and meet the goals of the CSIP. So that's a lot under one strategy. For fiscal responsibility, we're going to maintain a strong commitment to fiscal responsibility, strive to utilize the district's fund resources in ways that make the greatest impact towards the CSIP goals. Strategies to boost technology usage for student learning. We're going to utilize technology to enhance the educational experience. Continually monitor and evaluate the progress while making necessary adjustments to achieve the goals for the CSIP is the final goal. And then I think that is it. Like I said, there may be changes soon depending on that continuous improvement framework, but a lot of our strategies and our action steps align with that continuous improvement framework. That is mainly an academic side of things. So that was a lot. Questions?
It's something that we improve on, and we're excited about it.
Yeah.
Just to know that you guys work so hard to get this done, and we want those good graduates that come.
Yeah.
Then they come back and.
Yeah, yeah. And the school is the hub of the community. You know, like you said, students come back, and so if we have a good plan and we continue to keep the main thing, I think that helps guide us. Sometimes we're pulled in other directions, and that's okay. But if we keep coming back to that, and that's why we have it as a one-page document too, so we can keep coming back to it and say, okay, that's our focus. So when I'm planning PD, I'm looking at that rather than like, what's the newest AI tool? Well, is that really one of our, it might be, but assessing it against the CSIP.
I mean, it's a 5-year plan. Are there things that I guess already fallen off, we've completed, but that don't really show up in that?
Well, I know for a fact there's one that's due August 15th. And that's the dashboard and putting it out there. Our portrait of a graduate is one that will be completed hopefully by third quarter, so that will be by 2025. There are a couple 2025 action steps. I think as far as strategies, I don't think there's anything that's completed in 2025 completely as a strategy. As I was looking at these, I try to pace them out, but I think we'll get a better sense of it like as we go throughout the year, this next year, with principals kind of giving feedback like, hey, this is too much, or we need, I tend to bite off too much. So it'll probably be that. It'll be like, hey, we need to back off a little bit. And then taking that feedback and kind of redesigning some of our dates. And that's okay.
Does that dashboard go out to our website?
Yeah, so it will be a website that kind of reports out instead of like having the DESE hub. Now, some of that may report back out from DESE. Some of it's going to be from Marzano pulling our information. And then some of it we're going to gradually build and make better because it's going to be more qualitative data versus hard numbers. Yeah.
It is a lot, but I tell you, the way it's put together in here, and I don't know if that's just the formatting, because really the spreadsheet at the end is what we used to have. And this is a lot more able to be read and understood than reading that over and over and over, you know, the goal, the strategy, the action plan, the timeline, you know. I appreciate that.
And Bailey did a great job of putting it together and formatting it in a way. I have another document where it's my Word document, and she made it look a little bit more cohesive and definitely more appealing.
And then taking it and taking the, I don't know, the spreadsheet, taking it down to the pages 16 through 18, and then taking that down to goals and strategies, and then,
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice that you can just hand it to someone.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think our vision was like, well, maybe we would walk around and actually see it on somebody's wall, or, you know, where they could actually reference it.
How many times a year you guys meet?
Met twice.
We met twice, yeah, yeah, and then it started getting into the weeds. Like, I told the admin at one point, like, hey, I just need to meet with you and talk about strategies. I think it was like a 3-4 hour meeting.
From my recollection, we
Yeah.
created the pillars and the goals, and then we got.
So we didn't want to pull committee members in for that.
So, Dr. McClark, you know, the old school looking CSIP looked like, you know, Dave was talking about the, kind of the spreadsheet. And I'm trying to remember, but it seemed like in there was like a long-term tracking thing. Is that just another appendix that when we start getting that data
Yeah.
from the MAP test or the, you know, grade level assessments, there's like an appendix that the public or anyone could look at and go, oh, okay, well, I want to see the 5th grade reading scores. Or
Yeah, we haven't created anything like that, but we will have like a data dashboard that's front facing.
it'll be on
So
the
I think
dashboard.
that will
Yeah.
be, that will serve that purpose. But in some of these action steps, there are like assessment, like there's even something for like PD on data analysis at the building level. So they can look at some of those like item specs or whatever, like all that still exists,
You know,
yeah,
At the
yeah.
end of the day, this has got so much, even though it's shorter, it's not really. Now
Yeah,
you've got
yeah.
all of these things that if you're not in the education world, the whole, we're gonna start with a goal, then we're gonna go with a strategy, then we're gonna go with 17 gazillion actions. And sometimes people just wanna know what were the 6th grade reading scores, or what
Yeah.
were the 5th grade math, you know, they
Yeah.
just want a quick.
So you're talking about our old CSIP had the first section was all the data.
It had
Yeah,
data,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
gotta say, maybe it's because I like data, I liked that.
Yeah, yeah.
Because then I was like, okay, I can see what's driving
Mhm.
these goals,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and I think we definitely want to use data, but I think part of it is the data flawed? So we want to use the correct data, and I think that's part of like our SRSN conversations, like in conversations about how they set proficiency for the MAP test. I was told by people that I respect that are very statistical brained, I guess, and they were telling me that once we changed the standards and changed the test recently, that actually basic is proficient, but we kept that standard. So like when we're looking at proficient advanced, it really should be like, well, they met your grade level standards at basic. And so like when you start looking at that and going, well, and they wait to tell you where your scores are, because they also go back to the percentage of students and say, well, we want to keep it at this. And so they change their scores. And so is that a reliable test? Which is why we're shifting to, we want a through-year test so we can start to see, where is my student right now? What do I need to do to actually support this student, instead of having what we call autopsy data where it's too late?
And I think if you asked the teachers that are using our NWEA testing system, they would say that that's that through-year valuable information, that they're able to adjust their teaching.
Sure.
Rather than next year you get the students' scores from the prior year.
Right.
And now what are you
Sure.
going to do?
Different students.
So I think we, being back in the MAP test day of waiting on those scores and relying on those scores, have to transition our thinking into the teachers that are now using a through-year test and are actually finding it valuable and applicable,
Right.
real
And
time.
they're communicating that with
Yeah.
parents. You know, the public at large may not get as broad of a snapshot, but
Yeah.
parents know if their
Yeah.
individual child is growing,
Yeah.
which is really what parents want to know.
And that's why we're going to have that dashboard as well, because you're right, we do need to have like mile markers along the way, like a snapshot of, okay, but where are we right now?
Right.
And so that's kind of the point of that
And as
dashboard.
a person who moved
Yeah.
around a lot and sent my kids to 7 schools, I liked being able to
Yeah.
know, is this overall a school, overall,
Mhm.
before I even begin digging deeper, that I even want to look at,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think good both ways,
Yeah.
good data both ways.
I agree.
Yeah, okay.
Thank
other
you.
questions?
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you, appreciate
Yeah,
it.
a lot of work.
A lot of hard work.
Okay, how do I get out?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the continuous school improvement plan effective for the 24-25 school year as presented.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. On to new business, and we have adult food service prices.
Let's talk about food prices.
Let's talk about food.
Really, this is quick and easy. Last month, we approved our breakfast and lunch prices, which are up there again. I put the adult prices on the right. We were waiting for some data from Desi. I believe we got it yesterday. And then Lori did some calculations, put it together, and we have to go up 10 cents on our breakfast and lunch adult prices. So that's quick and simple. It's not as involved as the breakfast and lunch for the reduced full pay.
I'll make a motion to approve the, oh, does anybody have any questions? Okay, for the upcoming school year.
Second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
I can make a comment. I remember when those were probably
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Next on the agenda are the facility use fees for outside organizations.
Several years ago, I attended a session given by a bigger school district, administrator from a bigger school district, on the use of their facilities and fees, and I thought that was a good idea. I came back and we weren't ready for it yet. I think it just takes time, and trying to manage organizations using your facilities. Now, before we owned the ball fields downtown, that was better. The ball fields came on, and then it was doable, but I think Dr. Nix came to me and said, I think it's time that we put everything down on paper and we were equitable in the way that we're addressing people using our fields. Keep in mind that we have to, the custodial personnel still have to go down and clean up, empty trash cans, pick up trash. We still have to cut the grass on all of those fields and maintain them. If lighting gets turned on, we're paying the electric bill. So Dr. Nix approached me with a proposal after doing some research from some other school districts, and I'm going to kind of turn it over to him and let him talk about this a little bit and how we landed here.
Okay. First of all, the fact that we're able to let youth organizations use our fields is a great thing. You know, that's something that I want to continue to do now and in the future. Having contacted some area schools, there are schools who don't allow that, and you know, to me, that's something that we don't ever want to do, because there's a lot of groups that use our facilities because they don't have their own, and that makes sense. But I do feel like in the recent past, we haven't been consistent with things. We have some groups who don't pay anything to use the fields, and others who do. We have groups who pay the same amount, where one group uses the field a lot more than the other, but they're paying the same amount. So just want to be a little more consistent with how we do things and more fair. And really, I have nobody to blame but myself. This is my 16th year as athletic director, so this is something maybe I should have done a long time ago. But I think it's important that we be fair when somebody calls to use our facility, that we charge them the same that we would another group who also called to use the facility. And you know, when I put together this scale, I thought about each individual group that uses our fields, Fury softball, River Dogs baseball, community center, all those groups, and I looked at it from their perspective, because the last thing I wanted to do was gouge any of those organizations or create a situation where they couldn't afford to use our facilities anymore. Didn't want to do that. I think it's a great thing that we can provide that for them. But I do feel, as Dr. Taylor said, that we also have the financial responsibility that if we're going to be sending our custodians down there to clean it, we're going to be flipping on those lights and cutting the grass and seeding the grass, You know, specifically our ball fields, but we're talking about our football fields as well, but our ball fields, they're money pits, so to speak. We don't make a lot of money off of those things, but they do cost a lot. So to be able to charge these groups, I think is an important thing, but also to do so in an affordable way for them, in a consistent way from group to group.
Dr. Nix, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, all these teams, they got budgets, they fundraise. I mean, it's not like we're asking them to pull money out of the hat. I mean,
Right.
they may have to get a little more creative, up their dues, and maybe do a little more fundraising. It's not gonna, I don't think it's gonna, you know, in those tournaments, I'm sure they cost, so they should be hard to cover, I would think.
And like I said, I thought about each individual group and thought, okay, so the Fury softball program, how is this going to impact them directly? And is this something that's, you know, they're going to be able to afford and not look at this and say, well, I guess we can't use the facilities anymore because we can't afford that. That wasn't the goal at all. We want them all to be able to continue to use the fields. So yes, and these amounts also, I wanted to make sure that the ones who have already been paying aren't going to all of a sudden start paying a lot more than what they had. Just, again, something consistent, something that if somebody calls me and says, I want to use the field, I have a scale to go by and say, well, this group pays this and we charge them this, because that's kind of where we are right now, to be honest with you.
Dr. Nix, I have two questions.
Sure.
So in the past, before this was set up, it was just a flat fee, or sometimes do people not pay at all, or I have to admit, I don't know how it was.
No, that's okay. So really, before we owned the ball fields, all we had was the football field.
Right.
And before that was turf. We didn't let anybody use it because it was grass and people would get on and kill the grass. So really, it wasn't an issue in the past. Then we started letting some people use our football field and didn't really charge anybody. Well, then when we bought the ball fields, talking about Leon's and Yanks North and Yanks South, then all of a sudden we've got groups wanting to use those fields as well. And to be honest, that kind of was just completely coming from me as the athletic director, just saying, well, maybe a fair amount for you guys is this, maybe a fair amount. And then the number of times that they use the field continued to grow and grow and grow, but we didn't change anything.
Sure.
So it's like I said, having talked to other school districts, and I also talked to a representative from our community center to see what they charged for their facilities as well, just to get an idea, even in county, what they're being charged. And I wanted to see what other school districts did, and just about everybody charges something. And I mean, I even talked to one school district that said, we don't let anybody, this is a brand new turf field, we're not letting anybody use it. And I thought, wow, we don't want to do that. But you know, it's kind of evolved as we've turfed facilities and as we've bought facilities into where we are now, where we probably need to have something in place where we're consistent all the time.
Okay.
It's 500 for like all 3 fields.
Yes. So
Okay.
a good example with that would be River Dogs.
River Dogs.
Yeah, that's right.
They use Yanks North, Yanks South, and Leon's for their home tournaments. And they have, usually when they have a tournament, it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing with ages 8 through 14. I mean, there are dozens of teams that come here. And really, to be honest with you, and I know this because my son played River Dogs and my daughter just finished playing Fury softball. To get into a tournament, it costs anywhere from $400 to $600 to get in for a team. So, you know, charging River Dogs, in this case, $500 is less than the cost of one of those dozens of teams that they're paying the River Dogs to get in. So again, it's very affordable, but it's also something that we can say, here's what it is. It's not just Jeff Nix creating a cost for River Dogs. This is what the school district says it costs.
And what about gyms? So like in the winter, if volleyball or whatever, so we don't charge for gyms?
That's a very good question. That's absolutely crossed my mind because as of now, we don't charge for our high school gym or our 2 middle school gyms, and I'm just speaking about those because that's the ones that I do reservations for. So if somebody wants to use the gyms like the natural disasters or AAU basketball, they call me, I put them on the calendar, and they reserve that through me, but I don't do Bloomsdale Gym, I don't do St. John Elementary Gym. So I've avoided the indoor things because I don't oversee all the indoor facilities, where I sort of oversee all the outdoor facilities.
Is it still the case that for the volleyball, for example, that a school representative still has to be at practices?
Yeah, in the high school gym and the new middle school gym, yes. The old middle school gym, you can actually get into the old middle school gym from the exterior door with a key that that doesn't allow you to get to access to the rest of the building. So we're able to let people use the old middle school gym without a school representative, but because if you have access to our high school gym, you have access to the building. Same is true with the new middle school gym. Because of that, we require a school employee to be there.
But don't they have to go out to use the restrooms, or?
At
It's
the old
gated.
middle school gym, no. There's restrooms actually downstairs.
Oh, yeah, those
Yeah,
are
they're old.
still around. Okay.
They're in
But
there.
they serve the purpose, right?
Okay.
So, and you know, to talk about that with, not only the, so for the River Dogs and the Fury, years ago when when they were using everything, they were using 61 down, what is that down there?
Oh, this.
KC and Zell,
KC Hall.
they used all these places.
Yeah.
And so when Kyle was playing, just going to those games and then going to other towns, they were always really nice things. And I remember saying, oh, I wish we could have something like this, wish we could have something like this. Well, guess what? We got this. And it's beautiful, and all I hear is good things about, oh my gosh, I like going to St. John, I like their fields and all that stuff. So it's really.
We're very lucky. We have a
Yes.
community that supports our school district and allows us to have fantastic athletic facilities.
Yes.
Very, very proud of those.
Dr. Nix, back in the beginning when we got the fields, made the improvements, we talked about the community being able to use them. I'm pretty sure we also talked about, and I really don't remember, that if you use them, you would also clean them up. You would put the additional, I don't know what they are, chips out on the field. You would kind of do all that. Does that happen, or do we end up doing a lot of the cleanup?
It to a certain extent happens, but to be honest, if you're not out there, if you aren't putting the crushed rubber down on the turf all the time, you probably aren't doing it the way that it really needs to be done. So, we have a great relationship with the Fury organization, River Dogs Community Center, and they take care of our facilities. They do, but they really don't do it the way we want it done because they don't do it all the time. So the answer to your question is sorta. They do the best they can, and we're happy with what they do, but we do still have to send out custodians to clean up, because they'll clean up after themselves, but then our custodians have to go out and really clean up.
Really do the
Like
detail.
really clean the
Right.
toilets and things like that, which they don't do, and I wouldn't expect them to scrub the toilet after a tournament. But, they do take very good care of our facilities, and that has not been an issue.
Are all those organizations like Fury, River Dogs, Legion, are they allowed to use the concession stand also?
Yes, now that's a unique situation because at Yanks, for example, during the summertime, the River Dogs run the concession stand, and they get all the profit. We allow them to do that. We don't want to do
No.
concession stand during the summer, so if they want to have that available to their parents and spectators, we say, yeah, you go ahead, you can use our facilities, you buy your own product, you sell your own product, and we're hands off.
But it's like, and I really don't know. I didn't have any boys. I had all girls. But it's our hot dog warmers and our freezers and, okay.
Yeah, so that's another cost thing is, electricity and the usage, we have to replace popcorn machines that you said, you used that as an example, that's a great example, because we're constantly having to replace that, and we do that ourselves. So, Jennifer Beezer runs concession stands for the River Dogs, and she communicates with me through text message and says, hey, your popcorn machine broken. So then I'll text Davey and say, Go check out the popcorn machine, and he does, so.
She's amazing.
And these amounts, I mean, you could tell me probably better than anybody, are, I mean, we're just trying to cover electric, mowing, custodial services, not trying to make money here.
No, if we really truly charge what it cost us, even with the lights that we have out there now, how much those older lights cost to turn on and off, and seeding the field, fertilizing the field, we're talking about outfield, because we have tournament fields, but if we really charged the amount that we should, or that wouldn't cost us, then these organizations wouldn't be able to afford to use the field. So this is just a drop in the bucket of what it actually costs, and I can't say that I've seen the exact numbers, so I don't want to make it sound like I'm an expert as far as how much it costs us to maintain our fields, but I just know, having been the athletic director for 15 years, that it costs a lot more money than what we're actually charging these organizations.
What does the community center charge for their Challenger field, do you know?
I don't remember exactly off the top of my head. It was a little bit less than what we charge here. I want to say they do $10 a day without lights. He sent that to me, and I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly
okay.
what those numbers were.
Okay, and then so like summer rec leagues, you know, like we just got done playing Yank South. How are practices going to work? Or really, like, do you charge the community center a flat price for the entire season, or is it like per practice or per day? Like, how does that work?
So if this goes through, what we'll do is we'll reach out to each of the organizations that use our fields and say, hey, this is what we're doing. We encourage you to contact Dr. Nix to see how this directly affects your organization. So if the community center were to call me, and hopefully they do, and say, you know, what are we going to be paying here? They're a league, so they would fall under the bottom one there. They're a league. They use our fields about 60 days of the summer. They start in mid-April until basically the end of July, and they use 2 of our fields a day. So they're going to be basically paying $20 per day to use our fields. So that's pretty cheap. But you know, when I started looking at the numbers, I started out way higher, and then noticed how much that was going to cost their community center, and said, we can't do that because that's going to be way too much, asking way too much from them. So we dropped that down to something that was more affordable, but still something that we could charge where, you know, if they, so let's say they get rained out, let's say they had games tonight and it rained all day today and they had to cancel, then no, they wouldn't have to pay for it today. So it'll be something that, we already have a calendar that basically tells who has the field and when. So at the end of the season, I'll be able to actually go back and say, okay, you guys use the field 60 days, 2 fields, this is what you guys owe us.
And then for Legion, I of course was on the board when the school took over the ball fields, but was the Yanks organization somehow tied to the Legion, American Legion?
Legion runs Yanks.
So
Yeah,
how does, because they're going to have the same thing, right? They practice pretty frequently, right? They use the batting cages and.
They don't practice a lot. They're more of an organization where they usually practice once or twice at the beginning of the season, and after that it's just games.
Really?
But they do use the field a lot because they have a freshman Legion team, usually a junior Legion team, and a senior Legion team. When we took over the fields years ago, at the time Dr. Lindsay was the superintendent, and we promised the community that we would continue to let them use our fields, which I think is a great thing. We also we promised that we would continue to call our fields Leon's Field and Yanks Field, that we wouldn't change the names of those when we took them over. And then we also made an agreement with the community center because they use those fields so much, and they have so many teams, that we would allow them first priority from mid-April to the end of July to book the fields first before anybody. We've continued to do all of those things since we took the fields over.
Okay. And correct me if I'm wrong, when it comes to like winter sports, we have to rent the community center gyms.
Correct.
Did they charge us for that?
Yes.
Do you know how much they charge a day for that?
I don't. I probably should have before I came in here, but I don't.
Okay.
I know it's a lot
Well, well, one of the concerns I have is, so the baseball teams decide they're gonna use a gymnasium, and they're hitting balls across off the wall. Well, they're not charging them anything for that. It's a little, frightening if the gym is free to use and the fields aren't. And I don't think anyone in their right mind would not go to a ball field if they can actually go to a ball field and try it, but, we wanna make sure that they're not destroying our gyms too, if that's what's happening.
And we might be to a point where we need to come up with some sort of pay scale for our indoor facilities, but I think that's gonna have to be a district-wide thing. Because like I said earlier, I don't oversee all of our facilities, especially when we talk about the Bloomsdale campus and soon to be the early childhood center. So that will probably need to be something that comes from the district and a decision made collaboratively between the administrators and district office and all that stuff.
Okay.
It goes beyond just the athletic fields. Yeah.
And the new facility that'll come down the line, I mean, it's a lot to think about.
The wrestling facility is gonna be a big
Yeah,
one, because I know
it's gonna be big.
that organization is big and they're growing and they're doing great things, so.
We have a lot of organizations that use our gyms as well as our.
Do you know how, let's say this was in place last year, how much we would have gained revenue from that?
Well, I can tell you that we have, like I said before, some of our groups haven't paid anything. We need to be more consistent with that. But as far as who's paid what, the community center has paid us.
I'm saying if we would have had this already in
had this in
place,
place.
yeah, how much you,
I don't know, that's a good guess.
Yeah.
I know that it's not gonna be anywhere what it's gonna cost
You're right.
to maintain, but it's something, it's gonna help, and it'll also, like I said, if a group wants to use the field, I can say, well, here's the scale, it's not that Jeff Nick says this is what it's gonna be, it's gonna be, this is what the district has decided it costs you to use the field, if you use the lights, or don't use the lights, if it's an all-weekend tournament, or just a one-day thing, whatever it may be.
Everyone would still go through you pretty much to get access to these fields, so.
Right, right, and, if we are lucky enough to get that indoor facility and the wrestling facility, I'll do that too. I'll take care of it too.
think it's much better.
This isn't, you probably had some numbers in your head. This isn't anything that will push any of these organizations out to other facilities.
No, I don't believe so. And that's why I wanted them to contact me directly once we inform them of this, if it happens, because I want to talk it through with them and make them understand that this is, for a lot of these groups that are already paying, it's going to be the same or a little bit more, not anything that's going to cause them to not be able to use our facilities.
Can I ask this? So, I can give you an example. So, you have the flat fee for reservations under 4 hours, $40, or a league, $20. So, where does River Dogs fall, like in that? Do they fall into the 20 or the 40?
So they're a league, so
Okay.
what they would do is that anytime that they have a tournament, so they have 2 big tournaments.
I'm sorry, I'm just talking about just like a practice.
Okay, so if they rented Leon's for a practice, yes, since they're a league, it would be $20.
Okay, and does that cover ages 5 through 15? Because if you think about it, they only have one janitor, right, to come at the end of the day. And
Right.
that's, I guess what I'm asking is,
So it's $20 per day per field.
yeah, I'm sorry, so if they rent a Leon's for the day, would they just pay $20 as a
$20
whole?
the whole day.
As a whole
So if
organization?
If it's just a practice where they go on and they do it for a couple of hours, it's just $20. But if they do it for the whole day, that's a whole different story. It says all day, 4 hours or more. At that point, then it becomes $100 to $150 if they need the lights. So you're saying like if the River Dogs decide.
So you have 6U, 8U, 10U, 12U,
Yeah, we're
14U.
just
all
gonna
the
take the
same
field all day.
At that, well, that's kind of what the community center does. So if they rented it that way, then yes, it would only be $20 per day, which would be a lot more affordable.
Okay.
Sure.
Because make sure, we gotta make sure that everyone has the opportunity to use it. And
Right.
as long as, there's understanding that at the end of the day, we're having a custodian come and clean this up. We're not here midday, we're not here to, refill toilet paper, whatever needs to happen, then.
Right.
Restrooms are always accessible.
Yeah.
So Dr. Nix, With that being said, if a league pays the fee at the bottom, would the first two things, like using it for a half a day or all day, be other schools? Or, I mean, if you're not in a league, who's sponsoring your sports?
Other schools.
Oh, other
So,
schools,
yeah,
okay.
I'll give you an example. Occasionally, we'll get a call from, I got one from West County this year, they wanted to use our field
Okay.
because it had rained for 3 days straight, and the baseball coach, I know him very well, wanted to play, and I didn't, I'm not playing that you would play, you have played 4 days, but he asked to use our field. Valley Catholic calls and asks to use our field when theirs is too wet.
Okay.
Now, I did want to mention that, for example, the conference tournament. A lot of times, the AAA conference tournament will go to different sites, and if the fields are too wet, they'll call the turf fields to use the field. In that instance, we wouldn't charge because it's more of a conference tournament thing, and we're part of that
Part of the
conference.
interplay.
But if it's just West County wanting to play Lesterville, and they call to use our field, or Valley Catholic wanting to play Scott City, in that instance, they would pay to use our field, because
Okay.
right now they don't. They're one of the organizations that have not paid in the past.
Okay.
Any other questions for Dr. Nix? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Dr. Nix.
Any other questions on overall?
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed facility use fees for outside organizations as presented.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Any personnel changes approved during closed session this evening will be provided in the draft meeting minutes within 72 hours of adjournment. Yep.
All right. I'll make a motion to adjourn completely. A motion to adjourn the open session of the regular meeting of the Board of Education at St. Genevieve, Arkansas County.
Second. A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good night. Next meeting will be when, after school starts.
After school starts,
Man,
the last week of August.
It's amazing.